Once you have Construct 2 open, we're going to start a new project. We're going to start with a new empty project. I'm going to start off by clicking on the background and getting the layout size and changing that to 1280 by 720. Then I'm going to click on Project Properties, and that will allow us to set the window size. Right now the window size is not taking up the whole layout, so I'm going to change that to 1280 by 720. And that dotted line should go away because now our window size is the whole layout. Now I'm going to insert an object into the layout. I'm going to double click on the screen, and the first thing I'm going to add is a tiled background. You'll see that the crosshair says layer 0. That means I am placing this object inside a layer 0, so I can click. And I'm going to click on the Load Image button, which is an open folder. I'm going to choose the background image. To find this image, you can go to This PC, Stu Share, Game Programming, Construct, Alien Shooter. If you switch the view to large icon, you'll see an image preview of each file. Once you've loaded the image, you can close the image editor. We're only going to have one background, so we don't need to name this, but if you had multiple backgrounds, you would want to put in a better name than tiled background. As you move this around, the position will change. But we're just going to go ahead and put that at 0, 0, which is the top left corner. And then we'll change the size to 1280 by 720. And that will take up our entire layout. Then I'm going to go to my layer. You can access the layers by clicking on the Layers button right next to Projects. With layers selected, click on the pencil, and we will rename this layer to Background, so that our background is behind all the other layers and we won't get anything stuck behind it. Then I'm going to lock that layer and make a new layer, which I will call Game, to put all of the game elements on. First thing to put on the game layer, double click, is a sprite. Now you'll see that the crosshair says Game because we're putting our object on the game layer. I'm going to click Open and load my player image. Then I can close this. I'm definitely going to rename my sprite to Player. The position doesn't particularly matter, but we do want to add some behaviors. So in the behaviors section, there's a blue hyperlink to behaviors. That will open up the player::behaviors window. Currently we have no behaviors on our player, so let's add a new one. The first behavior I want to add is in the movement section. I want 8-direction movement so that we can move an object up, down, left, or right. And then each of the 4 diagonals based on the arrow keys. I'm going to add that. If I were to run it now, we'd have a character we could move, but he could also go off the screen. So I'm going to also add the bound to layout so that our character will stop at the edge of the layout. Now if I hit play and I move my character, he will stop at the edge of the screen. So now I can close this. The specific variables for those behaviors are over on the left. I'm going to change my player's max speed to 400. See that right now bound to layout is bound by the edge of our sprite. If you wanted it to be the middle of your character, it would be origin instead. Now when I run this, this is what I have. When you let go, it kind of stops a little bit like he's on ice skates. And that's because of the acceleration and deceleration values. Acceleration is the speed up going from 0 to the max speed. And deceleration is when you let go, slowing down back to 0. If you want a more responsive control scheme, just put in a high number here. So if I put in 10,000 on each of those, when I run it, it should go to full speed almost instantly. And same thing when I let go, the character will stop moving. Now I need something for the player to do, so I'm going to add in a bullet object. So I'm going to insert a new object. It's also going to be a sprite. I'm going to put that off the screen, load in the bullet image. Then I will close that. I need to rename my sprite to bullet. This is also going to have a behavior. The first bullet behavior is going to be bullet movement. The second bullet behavior is going to be destroy outside layout. The reason why we want destroy outside layout is if it doesn't hit anything and goes beyond the edge of the screen, it will just keep going forever even though you can't see it. And eventually when you have a few thousand outside of your layout, it's going to make the game run slower. So if we destroy them as they leave the layout and we don't need them anymore, it will make the game run faster. So let's close that. I'm actually going to put this on the screen so that I can run it and see what it looks like. So we have our bullet moving kind of slow across the screen. So I'm going to up that speed to 1000. Then I'm going to run it as a debug so that we can see what's happening. So my bullet ran, and then you'll see that now we have 0 bullets on the screen. If I refresh that, you'll see we have 1, and then as soon as it goes off screen, it switches back to 0. So that is working the way we wanted it to. I'm going to start that back up here so that when we first launch it, it will be deleted right away. Then we need the player to be able to shoot our bullet when we click our mouse. So to do that, I need to add another object. I'm going to add the mouse input object. That is now available to the entire project, including the event sheet where we're going to add this now. So we're going to add an event, and that is going to be from the mouse object. And we want on a click. So on click, I'm going to use the left mouse button, single click. You can change that to something else if you would like. And when our mouse has the left button click, I want to add an action. The action is going to be that the player shoots a bullet. So since the action is coming from the player, we want the player to be selected first. And then the action you want the player to perform, you want the player to create the bullet. So that is spawn an object. So if you type in object, you'll find spawn another object. That's what we want to do. So the player is going to create this object, which is a bullet. We want that to be on layer 1. So our game is on layer 1. So make sure you put 1 there. We haven't created any image points for our player yet. So leave that as 0, which is the origin. And then when we run that, we'll see what we have. So now the bullets are created from the player. If I were to turn, we'll see that the bullets still go with the orientation that the player is facing. And that's because our player is creating the objects. But we also see that it comes out of the middle of his face there, and that is not what we want. So let's close that. And that is the image point thing we were just talking about. So let's double click our player object. And down at the bottom, we have the set origin and image points. So currently we have 1, the origin, which is image point number 0. We don't want to change that because we still want our character to be able to rotate around the middle of his body. So we're going to add a new image point that's just going to be used for shooting. So this is image point 1. We're going to place that at his gun, so that is where the bullets are going to spawn from. Then we can close this, and then I'm going to double click on my action and change this from image point 0 to image point 1. Now when we run this, we'll see that the bullets now spawn from the gun like they are supposed to. Next, I'm going to add the ability for the character to aim where the mouse is facing. So I'm going to add an event, and we want this to happen all the time. Since the mouse doesn't have a change location event, we're going to just have it happen every frame. So we're going to add a system every tick. So if you type in tick, it'll be the only thing that shows up. What we want to do is we want the player to turn toward the mouse. We really don't want him to turn, we want him to just be directly at the mouse. So there's set angle, but what we really want is set angle towards a position, so that way we don't have to do the pre-cal involved. So we want the character to point at a spot, and the spot we want to point at is wherever the mouse is. So let's type in mouse. You can double click it, and then you press dot to get one of the mouse's attributes. These are the attributes of the mouse. For X, we want the mouse's X coordinate, which is here. And for Y, we get the mouse dot Y coordinate. Make sure you do the X and the Y, not the absolute X and Y. Now when we run this, our player follows our mouse, and whenever we shoot, the bullets go exactly to that point because that is where our character is turned and facing. And no matter which angle we're at, the bullets still come directly out of the gun because that image point is linked to the rotation of our character. And next time we'll add in enemies.